What's going on, fellas? I hope you guys are having a great Monday. I wanted to bring back a little car chat, cars and cruise cars and coffee cars, and I can't use that, that's trademark. Wanted to bring back the car chat sesh that I used to do. Well, I did a few videos like this back in the day, because there's a few things that, man, I need to talk to some sort of car person about, because it is just blowing my mind. So what I wanted to talk about today is the price on decent, I'm not going to call them classic because they're not classic, but mediocre, older sports cars. And I use the word mediocre relative to the equivalent of their sports cars now, or similar. So what I'm talking about is, I'm not going to use the NSX for an example, because the NSX is kind of in a realm of its own. It's a unique car, it's a rare car, very driver focused. It was an amazing car for what it was in its day. You really can't say it's an amazing car now by the standards of what today's cars are being made at, in my opinion, at least. Like, if you were to say the NA1 or the version 1 NSX had amazing performance, it did in its day, but you know, compared to, well, here's a Ford Raptor in front of me, which will probably do the same 0 to 60 time as a first gen NSX. So I mean, you really can't say that the performance stats in that are staggering. But that's kind of in a class of its own, because it in its day was a supercar killer, affordable, blah blah blah. But what I'm talking about is, I was recently looking at S2000s, just because, like most of you probably, I'm constantly looking at cars that are interesting to me, that I would want to get in the future. I've had two S2000s in the past. I love S2000s. They're fantastic cars. But if you're at all in that market or niche and you look at those, you will see that low owner to 1 to like 3 owner S2000s with low mileage. Low mileage is the key. It has to be low mileage, good condition, clean title, all that jazz. You'll see that those S2000s are actually going up in value. They're appreciating. I won't say that's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. What gets me though is, it's obviously not a bad thing, but what gets me is I saw two recently. Two S2000s. They had virtually no miles on them. They were both, I think, 05 and one was an 06, I believe. They had like under 5,000 miles, single owner. I think one of them, I don't even know if it has had an owner title to it. It may still be a dealership car. But they were both selling, or asking, they're both for sale at an asking price of $150,000. Huh? $150,000 for an S2000. Who's going to buy that? And if you do, what are you thinking? I mean, tell me in the comments if you disagree with me. The S2000 is a brilliant car. I would get another one. I would get a high mileage S2000, and I not really care about the amount of owners. A high mileage S2000, clean title, and I would pick that up for $7,000 to $12,000 and have an amazing car. And I would redo it similar to what I'm doing with the E46, and it would be fantastic. But if you're paying $150,000 for a one-owner S2000 that hasn't been driven, who's going? Why? Why? I'm so interested to hear why someone would want that. Is it a museum piece? Because I'm pretty sure Honda has an S2000 somewhere in a museum that is like 0 miles, and it's like the first one ever or something. I'm pretty sure that exists. I don't know, but I would assume it does. Another example of this, I was on a forum, and there was a gentleman with a low mileage, semi-rare spec E46 M3. And everyone was freaking out about the spec because it was a rare spec and it was low mileage. I believe he was the original owner, and he was toying around with the idea of selling it. And he said, I'm going to hold out until I can get $75K for it. That's a huge amount of money for an E46 M3. If you go on EAG Motorsports, Enthusiast Auto Group, they're known for having like the cream of the crop BMWs. You'll find E46 M3s there with 30, 40,000 miles that are very, very clean, rare spec-ish, competition pack, going for 50K. That's insane to think about when you think, okay, say he gets 75K for the E46 M3. You could get an R8 for that. If you look hard enough, you can get a V10 R8 for close to that. An AMG GTS, those are well below 100 now. McLaren MP4-12C, those are below 100 now. I mean, there's so many sports cars and quote-unquote supercars that you can get for that kind of money. I get the nostalgia of the 6-speed. I get, you gonna cut me off, or what are you doing here? You're in both lanes at once. You can't do that. That's not allowed. One lane or another. You picked your lane? Okay, good job. I don't believe you have, though. No, she hasn't. So, I'm very curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because it's becoming more and more clear that the mediocre sports car that isn't focused on 0 to 60 time, that isn't focused on Nürburgring lap records or anything like that, but is purely focused on kind of just driver focused. If you hold on to those long enough and they have low enough miles and you take good care of them, it looks like eventually the value will increase. If we take a note from the S2000 and the E46 M3, those are both early 2000 model year cars, and it's taken them roughly, let's call it, both the cars I'm talking about, I believe, I said the S2000s were 05 and 06. I believe the E46 I'm talking about was a 2006. So let's call it 13 to 15 years to really start appreciating and gaining their value back. If that's the case, I mean, does that mean in 10 years the Mustang GT350R, do you think that will appreciate? Because I don't believe they're appreciated yet. I believe they're holding their value, but that's a similar car that I would put in that same realm of car relative to when it was produced. I think the Mustang GT350R was kind of, very similar to the classification of where you would put that in sports car range for its time, compared to like the S2000 and the E46 M3. But I'm trying to think of other cars that are new-ish now, because the S2000 lost value, the E46 M3 lost value, just like all cars do, but they're gaining it back. So what cars now do you think are losing value now that in 10 years, if kept in good enough quality, low enough miles, low enough owners, will start to gain value and potentially hugely gain value? Because again, I don't know the MSRP of the E46 M3 off the top of my head. I know I owned a 2006 Interlagos Blue Competition Pack 6-speed back in probably 2009 or 2010, somewhere around there. and I want to say I paid mid-30s for it. And at the time, that was the most expensive car I had ever bought. But that car now, if the miles are kept low, that car would be going for 45 to 50 grand. So I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on A, if you would pay the amount of money that these, I don't even know what I should call them. They're sports cars, but again, you talk about the S2000, that's not about 0 to 60 times. That's not about lap records. My fiance's SQ5 will go faster 0 to 60 than the S2000, I guarantee you. So, I'll call them sports cars, but would you buy an E46 M3 competition pack, low miles, over a V10 R8? Would you buy it over an AMG GTS? Even an MP412C, because that is quickly depreciating. And also, what cars now are being produced that you think will eventually appreciate? Because it's clear that driver-focused cars that are being built tend to appreciate after a certain point of time. I don't know how long that is. Again, judging from the E46 and the S2000, it looks like it's between 13 and 15 years it really takes for those to start appreciating. So, just something I wanted to get off my chest, because $150K for an S2000. I love that car. I will have another one of those cars. I'm going to build it. I just love that platform. It's awesome. There's no way you would catch me spending $150K on an S2K. No, not going to happen. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, guys. If you're new to the channel, thanks for watching. Smash the subscribe button. There's going to be a lot of good content you don't want to miss with my E46 M3 coming up. Shoot, hopefully that thing will... If anyone wants to offer me 50 grand for that, I'll sell it to them. I promise. Cheers, guys. I'll see you next video.